Hi, everyone. We are in the Leaders in CI podcast, the place for business leaders interested in CI, Kaizen, Lean, business excellence, and operational excellence in general. Today, we are joined by Bob Emiliani. Bob is a professor in Central Connecticut State University, US. He also has a lot of experience in the aerospace industry in UTC and Pratt & Whitney. And also he wrote more than 20 books about Kaizen and Lean. In fact, you can see the list of books today in LinkedIn, and they are very, very, very good. Very, very good.
Thank you.
And so, Bob, welcome to the Leaders in CI podcast.
Thank you, Euclides. I'm very happy to be with you here today to talk about Kaizen. It's a favorite subject of mine.
Thank you. And in this episode, we will talk about the origins of Lean in America. Bob lives in America, in Connecticut, and he knows what happened since the beginning in America, the introduction of Lean, the origins of Lean. We are also interested in knowing about Japanese style consulting or teaching in a certain way. And also, always a very interesting topic is leadership engagement, how to engage the CEO and the top management teams. And finally, what is the current and future state of Lean in America? So, Bob, can you briefly introduce yourself and your background?
Certainly. So I worked in industry for 15 years upon completing my my degrees in engineering. So I had a bachelor's, master's, PhD in different engineering fields. And instead of going into university, I went into industry because I felt like, even though you're well educated, you still don't know many things. And so you have to get out there in the real world and see what it's like. So I had management positions in engineering, manufacturing, and supply chain management. And after that 15-year period, I joined university. At that time, I felt qualified and capable of teaching, but it was not in engineering. It was really a shift into the social sciences, leadership, supply chain management, and so on. So I spent 23 years in university teaching courses on basically Lean-related subjects, and of course did a lot of research, which led to a lot of writing, both books and academic peer-reviewed publications. And I am now retired from higher education. So I retired in June of 2022.
Oh, but I'm sure you are still writing very interesting things.
Yeah, well, thank you. Mainly blog posts these days. I'm kind of pulling back from book writing. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with talking about the origins of Kaizen management in North America. So I read something that you wrote, some articles, and you talk about the role of Connecticut businesses in terms of Kaizen Lean management in America. For the people that don't know, Connecticut is a state north of New York, I guess, right?
Yes, between New York and Boston. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So actually, I just want to say there's Professor Yasuhiro Mandan wrote some books about just in time that talked about Kaizen at Kawasaki in the Midwestern United States in the early 1980s, and a few other companies that were doing this kind of thing in the early 1980s, some on the West Coast and a lot in the Middle America. But there was a lot of manufacturing in Connecticut in the still in the 1980s. And we had what was called an economic cluster for the aerospace business. And so, and there was many other types of businesses. And one of them, of course, was Jacobs Chuck and Jacobs Vehicle Systems and so forth. So at one of our industrial advisory board meetings at the university back in 1980, I think it was probably in 2005, somebody asked about what was the history of Lean in Connecticut. And I thought that was an interesting question. And I had some information to answer at the time. But I ended up writing like a one-page summary, and then that led to a much longer paper that was published in a journal called the Journal of Management History. And so you can find this on my website. In a couple of days, I will post a blog. There will be a blog post you'll see on LinkedIn that talks about how to access all my research papers and so forth. Anyway, so it's a very, very interesting history of really the blossoming, I would say. There was things going on with Kaizen and so forth in different companies in different parts of the United States, but really in the late 1980s, starting around 1987, the blossoming of it. And it had to do with Masaki Amai's book Kaizen, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, Imai started in America in a seminar hosted by Alice Heist.
Yep.
And it was a very interesting thing that in the seminar brochure, it says, implant Kaizen seminars. That was something new, right?
Oh, it was very new. Yeah. And it was very new and exciting for the people. I wasn't part of that. I was actually finishing up my PhD at the time, but Alice Heiss was the corporate relations manager at the Hartford Graduate Center, which is now called, years ago, changed the name to Rensselaer at Hartford. It was part of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. The university is located in Troy, New York. Anyway, so Alice went to a meeting in Chicago that was related to industrial machinery and equipment, and Masaki Amai was there, gave his talk about Kaizen, and Alice Heist, of course, being the corporate relations manager, and a lot of the students at Rensselaer at Hartford were from the local corporations, and she knew the leaders of these corporations and so forth. And she thought that this would be very interesting and invited Masaki Amai to Connecticut to lead one of these seminars. And of course, there's the consultants at the time that were affiliated with Kaizen Institute were Iwata and then Nakao and Takanaka. And the implant seminars, the implant Kaizen activity, some of the executives were from Jacobs Vehicle Systems, popularly known as Jake Brake, George Koenigsegger, and he volunteered and said, let's go into our company, and he was the president at the time, and let's begin the process.
Yes, very interesting. And of course, the role of these Japanese consultants, in the first place, Masaki Mai, but also Iwata, Nakao, and the other gentleman
Takanaka, yeah.
Takanaka, exactly. I joke about this. I say they are the Ferrari of consulting, because they are the best, the fastest ones. But there are only a few, so you cannot get a Ferrari in your company because it's very scarce, So, but they were very important, I think, in introducing Kaizen and Lean in America.
Yeah, and at Jake Brake, they went into the company and just basically told George Koenigsegger, this place is a disaster, and they rolled up their sleeves and they worked late into the night, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, something like that. And, went to the seminar the next day, but returned the next, after the seminar, ends at 4 or 5 o'clock, back to the factory to continue the work. Essentially the Japanese consultants have vast experience and knowledge of things that no U.S. at the time, certainly, that virtually no U.S. executive of any company had. And so they're just they were and remain an incredible resource, not just to learn from and gain knowledge, but also to guide you in developing the know-how, which is very important, not just learning. Learning, we hear a lot in the lean world about lean is all about learning, but what's more important than learning is know-how. Learn the know-how to create a just-in-time system, the know-how to do setup production, the know-how to do TPM, the know-how to do Kanban, et cetera, chaku-chaku lines, the know-how to do all of these things. And they guide you to be able to do that so that you can then do it in other places.
Yeah, and on top of that, they have a new frame of reference, just in time, like you said, the new way of organizing a process, a supply chain, of course, starting in the middle of production. And nowadays we talk about a lot about lean, but what about Kaizen? So is there a difference between Kaizen and lean? So this is a common question.
So, initially lean was meant to be the generic term for Toyota production system. Over time, lean has really evolved into just some popular tools, value stream map, A3 reports, Gemba walks, kata, coaching, and maybe one other, and really doesn't include Kaizen anymore. Lean started to drift away from Kaizen about 24, 25 years ago. And of course, Kaizen is extremely important because that is the methodology by which TPS was created and which also concurrently led to the creation of the Toyota Way. So Kaizen is fundamental. People need to think of Kaizen as what you learn in kindergarten and first and second and third grade, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Of course, you'll continue to learn that through elementary school. But I mean, let's face it, what we learn, what we use day to day in our lives, mostly is what we learned in elementary school, grades 1 through 6, at least in the US. I don't, elsewhere it's a little different, but this is mostly what we learn. We may take calculus and differential equations and whatever our specialty is, but we end up mostly not using that in our day-to-day life. So Kaizen is the fundamental, which Lean somehow decided was not important. Whoever owns Lean and decided this is not so important, and this just moved into what I consider to be just a crazy direction. And has produced what I call fake Lean, which meant continuous improvement without respect for people, and what I call junk Lean, which is just, you don't get there. You need to get results. We're doing this in business, so we need to do Kaizen so it produces some bottom line results as well as people development and other things.
Yeah, of course, the Kaizen is the foundations, is the basics, like you said. I used to say Kaizen is the process, Lean is the result,
Yeah, okay.
Just to summarize it, but you explain it very well. So Kaizen and Lean must be together, and you must start, of course, with the foundations. And the foundations is in our last podcast, we saw the 3 basic tools, daily management with the fundamentals of 5S and engaging the teams, daily improvements, problem solving, and also Oshin can read the management of the big changes.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob, let's move to another topic about Gemba Kaizen. So this is a word, of course, in Kaizen Institute, we talk about Gemba Kaizen. Everybody knows what is Gemba Kaizen. I'm not sure many people outside know what is a Gemba Kaizen. So what is a Gemba Kaizen 1 week intensive workshop?
Yeah. So this started out really, if the Japanese Kaizen consultant is going to come from Japan to visit you, they're not going to come for a few hours and leave, and go back to Japan. That doesn't make sense. So if they're going to come and visit you and help you and guide you into improving your processes and so forth, they're going to spend some time with you. And sort of the logical way it worked out was to spend a week. So what normally happens is on the Thursday and Friday before the Kaizen week, and of course Kaizen takes on many forms. It doesn't have to be a week, but this is just how it got started. The Thursday and Friday, you do some homework to figure out what the problems in your process are and do some basic measurements and so forth. And that's what the team does on a Thursday, Friday ahead of time. And then on Monday morning, you present to the Kaizen facilitator what your problem is and so forth. And they then guide you in making those improvements over the course of the week. And of course, the idea is to correct and improve your quality problems, your delivery problems, your lead time problems, your worker ergonomic problems, You have problems in terms of the processes being disconnected. So there's queue time between the steps. So you eliminate the queue time and connect the processes to create the flow. All of the while you're doing teamwork here where people are working together. They're creating standardized work, which they are taught to update frequently as people get new ideas and as circumstances change. And basically, fundamentally, what the Kaizen consultant is getting you to do is to access your intelligence and your creativity in ways that you have never done before, maybe in your life, and certainly not at work, never done before at work. And it is just a revelation. I mean, it is eye-opening. I cannot tell you how, what a revelation it was the first time I was engaged in Kaizen, because I had been taught for many years of education about critical thinking. And then all of a sudden I realized that the critical thinking I learned was, on a 1 to 10 scale, I thought was a 10, but was actually a 2 or a 3. And then Kaizen raised it to, 7 or 8. And then as you reflect and learn more about this, you raise it more than that. It was amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah, can you give us an idea of what happens in a Gemba Kaizen? A kind of day-to-day process, or the moods on a daily basis? What changes by the end of the week, for example?
Yeah. So, day by day, you go about the process of figuring out how to make significant improvements. Not just, one of the things people think about Kaizen is, 5-10% improvement. But what you're really doing is you're going from a complete mess to a much better situation. So we're talking about improvements that are typically hundreds of percent improvement, 100%, 500% improvement over the prior condition. But to get there, you have to experiment. You have to try new things, try ideas out, and you have along the way these various discoveries. And you also have frustrations because certain things don't work, and sometimes you kind of block the team. You individually or the team, you hit some blockades and so forth. But over the course of the week, you start to emerge from those frustrations and difficulties, and you have big positive changes that the team makes, and that everyone by the end of the week is very, very proud of. And so you've produced changes so that it's simpler, it's easier, it's better, it's lower cost, it's higher quality, shorter delivery time, and so forth. And it's just remarkable. And you can get these large changes. I mean, these changes of 200, 300, 400, 500% are illustrating how bad the process was to begin with. And what's amazing about that is that in any company, you have lots of smart people, whether they've spent their career on the shop floor, or whether they're manufacturing engineers or other people with college degrees or graduate degrees. And it turns out that they've managed, for whatever reason, to design the worst possible way to do something. It's not their fault, but now we have the Kaizen consultant come in and enlighten us and guide us to a much better way of thinking about processes and how to improve them. It's amazing.
Yeah, nowadays in Kaizen, we are not, we don't have many Japanese consultants, but we had in the beginning with Imai.
Yes.
And we learned a lot from them. And in the beginning, and we saw in some places, Japanese consultants were called the Insultants. Is this true? How come we have this, let's say, name for them?
Yeah, I always like that play on words, from consultant to insultants. And so basically what happens is they're very direct. And the reason why they're very direct is because they want to wake you up to the terrible situation that you are in, that if you don't pay attention to what they're saying, you run the risk of the company going out of business and throwing people out of their jobs and not being able to serve the customers and wiping out the investors' investments, the shareholders' investments, and to create a blight on the community because now you've closed your factory, and to mess up your suppliers because you're no longer in business, and so on. So they're trying to shake you and wake you of this reality. They'll tell you directly, that you're a bad manager. You're putting the company at risk of failure, people losing their jobs. Your company generates waste better than it generates the product or service. It's more effective at generating waste than the product or service. So just they're trying to help you see the reality. Now, some people have a large negative reaction to being told in a very straightforward way that they're not a good manager. But I always looked at this as, to me, from my perspective, even before I knew anything about Kaizen, that this to me was motivating, because what we could see is producing a better result in terms of the process, and that better result mean there was just fewer problems and less reason to blame people for problems. And so it was like the sun rising. We could literally now see what's going on when we couldn't see it before. So the insults were just, some people make a big deal out of that, but that's really just a minor piece of it. And to me, it was a motivating piece of it.
Yes, yeah, and then I advise people that are interested in this to read your books about Shingijutsu and Kaizen and Nakao. They are easily found, and you explain quite well, that behavior and the style of consulting, the style of teaching. But also, Bob, I remember that the Japanese guys, they are coming from Toyota, those, and Toyota is the mother, let's say, the mother of invention, and they have a new paradigm. It was the one-piece flow system that provided the just-in-time. So, and I remember when I started, I was reading about one-piece flow, and I couldn't understand, I couldn't see how that was possible. So I guess that, and I saw this, they shock a lot of people when they say, okay, everything you are doing is wrong because you are doing a batch and the queue. But they don't tell you are doing a batch and queue. They say everything you are doing is wrong. Just put one-piece flow and make standard work.
Yeah.
And I'll go and do it, And I guess people are puzzled in a certain way, but they can only learn if they go and do it, right?
That's right. But also, let me back up for a moment on the insultants. Toyota people are very direct with one another, and that's part of what they consider to be respect for people. And so the insultant, to me, and the way I interpret it, was by waking me up, they were respecting me. Mm-hmm. And so that was a very important part of the overall process. But yes, I mean, the one-piece flow it's shocking what they're asking you to do, but it's basically they're trying to convert you from your production system being oriented towards a seller's market, which likely does not exist, which means the seller's market means the advantage goes to the seller. As much as you make, the customers will buy. But in reality, most businesses are in a buyer's market, which means it's a competitive environment. So you compete against other people. You can't just keep producing stuff and hope it will sell. So that's where Toyota decided we want to, get an order for one item. So we make one item, sell one, make one, instead of overproducing and have all this inventory costs and so forth. So they're wanting to wake you up to the reality that you're in a competitive market and you cannot just keep producing to absorb budget overhead and so forth, as is typically done in batch and queue and classically managed business. Mm-hmm. So, there's a logic that runs behind all of this, which they do not always explain to you. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've tried to do in my books, is provide the background explanation for what they are trying to do to get us to shift from a seller's market mentally, the mental orientation of a seller's market and the production system that reflects the seller's market, which would have made sense, by the way, 100 years ago, but which started to fade away certainly by the time the post-World War II period came around, but even started to fade away in the 1930s. But let's say just in the post-World War II period, the late 40s and 50s. Mm-hmm. And so part of the reason why they're insulting us is because we're way behind. You know, in the 1980s, they basically, in the late 1980s and middle 1990s, when I experienced them, were basically 30 years behind
Yeah. Yeah.
in how we think and how we do things. And so to the Kaizen facilitators, we have an emergency here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I find it interesting that you say sell one, make one. This is just in time. But also in warehouses, they were saying sell one, order one. That is also mind-blogging for many people. And why shouldn't I order in a batch? Why should I order one by one?
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
And what about, have you seen Gemba Kaizen in outside production? We done it, but with Japanese consultants, have you seen they doing it in outside in like a kind of transactional areas like finance, human resources, whatever?
Yeah, yeah. So everybody thinks they're different, but it works the same way outside of production. Basically, you know, what you're trying to do is understand the work and connect the processes and eliminate the queue time so that you get a flow. And what you're doing, even in manufacturing, is just processing information. So, you know, Kaizen works wherever information is processed and exchanged. You know, goes from one step to the other. You process it within the step and it gets exchanged and goes to another step. So it's all just information processing. In manufacturing, the information looks like a physical part, whereas in a service business, it looks different. It could be a hospital, looks like a patient or something else, or an insurance company looks like a processing information for an insurance policy and so forth. So basically, somebody's work that they're doing is just information processing. Now, they could be running a machine, but it's information processing that's occurring. So the information takes physical and non-physical form. So Kaizen works in any type of any environment like that.
I see. I see. And what about if you go into a process-based industry like oil and gas, you know, chemical industry? So the flow is already inside pipes. What would be the approach of a Gemba Kaizen, you know, in this type of industries?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of work still within the processing arena to improve what's going on there because they produce a defective product and so forth and have production problems, et cetera. And then, of course, there's also a lot going on in the office areas where you have disconnected processes and so forth that create lead time problems, create order fulfillment problems. And there's, of course, errors and, you know, somebody ordered 10, you ship 20, you know, problems like that.
Yeah. And I also saw that some Japanese consultants, they say you are so bad that you don't have basic stability. So in the first week, what you have to do is clean all the machines. Have you seen this type of, let's say, intensive cleaning of machines like in TPM?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because most places are just, you know, I mean, you keep your house fairly clean and orderly, but a lot of factories are just tremendously messy. And so you just have to clean things up so that you understand what you have.
Yeah. And I guess even in process-based industries, there are a lot of rubbish inside the pipes. You know, if everything is inside the pipes, and not only inside the pipes, but outside of the pipes. You know, like degradation and lots of problems to be solved.
Well, there's leakages, there's spills, you know, all kinds of abnormalities like that. Yeah,
all kinds of losses. And if you really don't take care of your process, you know, and continuously improve your process, then it gets it's entropy. It's the phenomena of entropy. Things, if you don't care about things will degrade. You know.
Yeah, and they teach us to care about the equipment like it's some personal possession of ours, you know, not to let it degrade.
Yeah. Okay, so let's change topic and let's talk about lean management, Kaizen management nowadays in North America. What was or is, of course, the role of Danaher and Larry Culp?
Well,
I saw recently an article, you know, that says Is Larry Culp the number one industrial CEO on the planet?
Yeah.
What has he done? What is he doing now, to be
Yeah. Well,
considered number
like
one?
like Danaher and Wire Mold and some others, they're kind of iconic examples of where Kaizen was practiced continuously, and they've had good results over a long period of time. He might be the current number one, but probably not the all-time number one.
Yeah.
Um, he brought Japanese consultants into General Electric as part of his overall turnaround efforts. And there seems to be a lot of enthusiasm within GE for what they are not, they're learning stuff. Okay, that's good. But there's also developing the know-how. That's much better. And so there's enthusiasm around this. And there always is, because people have ideas all the time at work about what needs to be improved. Usually the boss says, no, just do the job and don't change it, etc. Now you can finally have permission from the CEO to come up with ideas to make things better, to experiment, to try new things individually and as a team, and to connect processes and get to know the people and the team downstream from you as well as upstream from you, and work together to produce a better product and service with fewer of the traditional problems: cost, delivery, quality, safety, all of these things that cause a frustration in people's day-to-day work that they don't like, that make work miserable. And if you look in the dictionary for the word work, what means, it doesn't say anything about being frustrating or miserable or blaming people. It doesn't say anything like that. So we need to understand that dictionary definition, and we need to connect that with Kaizen to produce a result that's good for humanity, good for the employees, their customers, their investors, suppliers, community, and so on.
And yes, we know that the first companies, even in Connecticut, the pioneers in Lean, in Kaizen, they were let's say in a certain way, the companies that gave origin to the Danaher Corporation.
Yeah.
And we see from many sources, including we are working with Danaher companies also.
Yep.
They really have the mandate from the CEO, to implement Kaizen Lean management, what they call the Danaher business system, the DBS. So, and of course, I have to ask you, Larry Culp now is in GE Aerospace. What is he doing differently from Jack Welch? Because Jack Welch also was some years ago was considered, he was doing a lot of improvements, like Six Sigma improvements and even workouts. The name was not Gemba Kaizen, it was workout. So what is your opinion about that?
Jack Welch was on the cutting edge of the financialization of American industry. And he did that very well, but that also created many problems. And the after the fact, biographies of Jack Welch are very negative now in terms of what he did. And Jeffrey Immelt, his guy who followed after him, struggled for 15 or more years to correct the problems that Jack Welch created, and he basically was unsuccessful. And so basically, Larry Culp is righting the ship, and he's shedding a lot of debt by breaking up these companies, because that was one of their big problems. And so you have now these independent units that are going to operate. It's what I call the CEO playbook. Just doing the kind of stuff that Jack Welch did resulted in a lot of problems. And it was essentially classical management, the old way of doing things, just with a new financialization twist. The Six Sigma was, this was something that I never was particularly liked, because it created bottlenecks. You had certain people who were Six Sigma experts, and if I had a problem in my area, I'd go to you to help me fix it. But if you're busy with 8 other Six Sigma projects, each one taking 6 months, my problem never gets addressed. And in the meantime, I got cost, delivery, quality, schedule, every kind of problem you can imagine. And instead, with Kaizen, of having people on the Gemba thinking of ideas to correct their own problems, you now have to wait on a specialist. So the idea of a specialist to fix your problems is no good. And I was at United Technologies doing recruiting at the time in 1999. And this is when you start to see a lot of resumes with people wanting to get out of GE. They had completed, got to the black belt level. This because it was just a few years after Welch started with Six Sigma. Now you saw people now with black belt, the resume started to fly in because they wanted to get out of there. So it was not a good situation. And what to their credit, the Six Sigma people stuck lean on their name,
Yes, yes.
And they have been they have been successful in doing that. To what end? I don't know. I don't think it means much. I don't think it means anything really. But they took the name Lean, stuck it to Six Sigma, and now there's a lot of there's a lot of people certified in Lean Six Sigma, which is basically the old Six Sigma certification. Doesn't mean anything.
And in the end, is a tool-based approach. So
yeah, exactly.
Because they really don't change the culture of the company. They have the experts and they have to implement the tools, and that's it. And
yeah.
What are the best lean companies currently in North America, in your point of view?
I don't know. I don't keep track of that information, and I don't think I don't think you really know unless you're working in those companies every day, getting a paycheck from them, to know if management is really committed to Kaizen. I used to keep track of this many years ago, probably in the late 90s and early 2000. But I stopped that because there's too much of the fake lean that showed up. There's too many articles in the paper that are what you may know as puff pieces, that they're just the communications department calls up some magazine, write an article on our boss and the great things that they're doing. And it's not the real story of what's going on. So there was that happening in the early 2000s. It still happens today, of course. So it was unclear, and so I stopped looking at that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our previous guest, Caroline Lamb, she was ex-Danaher. She worked in Philips also, and now she's in Philip Morris. And she told us that there are many good companies with CEOs that came from Danaher Corporation. And she gave very many examples of CEOs that came from Danaher Corporation, including Larry Culp, because Larry Culp is in GE now.
Right.
And she also said that if you look, I am investing in the stock exchange in companies with ex-Danaher CEOs because the stock value is always increasing.
Yeah.
So it's I guess many companies are doing this because we see we have many requests from companies, and people read books, people try to learn. So I guess, and I'm sure Kaizen and Lean is a management method, that if you want to be a successful manager or even CEO, you need to test it, to try it at least, and if you like it, if you see results, you should adopt it. I guess because there are many proofs that it works very well as a way to manage. Right. Yeah. Okay. So now, always one question we ask is the role of CEOs and leadership in Kaizen Lean transformation, in managing a company the Kaizen Lean way. So, what should be the role of the CEO, in your point of view?
Number one is to avoid the mistakes that most CEOs make when they introduce Kaizen and Lean. That's number one. Most of the time, the CEOs don't know Kaizen or Lean well enough to be able to talk about it when they introduce it. So they make a big mistake when they say, we have competition, we have high costs, we have lead time problems. Yeah, everybody knows that. You're not telling anybody anything new. Yeah. You want to be able to connect to the people on a human level, to explain to them why this is necessary, what the objective of Kaizen and Lean. You need to vividly describe what a better work life can look like for workers, what are the benefits for them, better safety, less stress, fewer errors, less blame. you have to think about who you're talking to before you talk to them and what their concerns and needs are, and as it relates to the bigger picture of your concerns and needs as a CEO, and the even bigger picture of the customer. Leaders say cash is king. That translates into the customer's king. So why are we doing this? So they've got to avoid all of these common errors they make. They have to lay the proper foundation before introducing Kaizen. They have to understand respect for people beyond the simple meaning that is in everybody's head of like, I wave to people and smile and ask them how they're doing, this kind of thing. I'm courteous. They have to also get involved in the Gemba. They have to learn by doing. They have to, to be credible, you have to have some experience with this. And everybody knows you're the CEO and you're busy, you got a lot to do. But you also have, if it's a big company, you also have 500 other executives, and you have a chief operating officer, a bunch of vice presidents. You can delegate your work for a week to somebody else to go do while you engage in Gemba Kaizen. And you can do that once a quarter, and it builds tremendous credibility and knowledge and know-how, so that when you visit other places, you can have some judgment of whether the know-how is occurring or not. You're part of a team member. When you're a CEO on a Kaizen team, you're just a team member. You're not the team leader. And so you're going to start to connect with people, talk with them, be part of the team. They'll get to know you as a human being. You're going to be part of the team and come up with ideas and try them out. Can be crazy ideas like everybody else. Basically, you'll be leading by example.
Yeah.
And you have to do those things. And you see it with Larry Culp. He puts on the safety glasses, the jeans, the steel-toed boots, when he's in the shop, and similar thing in the office to do Kaizen. And he's been in a lot of Kaizen, and he's still learning, and he's still doing it. And it's not, part of the problem is most CEOs believe themselves with their status and rights and privileges that this is not the thing they should be doing, but it is absolutely the thing they should be doing.
Yeah, especially if they want to have an awareness in the first place of what is going on, what are the potential for improvement, what is waste, what is not waste, to deeply understand how the production process is organized. And not only production process, they can do the same in warehouses, they can do the same in service companies,
And the CEOs need, I was going to say, the CEOs, they also need to understand the language of lean, which is not, maximize. That's not the right word in Kaizen world. Projects, that's not the right word either. There's a whole language associated with Kaizen that if you use the old language of batch and queue, seller's market, classical management, and you bring some of that language, keywords, project, maximize, whatever, I wrote a blog post on all these darn wrong words, then you confuse people, you mix things up. You're not leading, you're confusing. Most leaders, in my estimation, they don't lead. What they actually do every day is confuse people. You're the CCO, Chief Confusing Officer.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you talk about the meaning of words, because, it's really important to change the words you are using, because many people say the words define reality, and if you want to change your reality, you have to use different words in a certain way. So if you never talk about one-piece flow, if you are the CEO, you don't talk about one-piece flow, you have a manufacturing company. So you will never get out of the batch and queue paradigm, just a small example.
Right, yeah. And you have to mean it. You have to understand what these words mean. Why maximizing, why improvement and maximizing, two different words, they have two different meanings, why one is used, why the other is not used.
Yeah.
And also, not just adopt these new words because this is fashionable. CEOs are great at doing that, but they have to understand the meaning and the difference of the words. Yeah.
And also, what I see is that the classical school of management is that the CEO and the management team, they try to develop a vision of the future, I want to get these results. I want to achieve this, but they never start with the problems, with the current problems, So it's not really a problem-solving approach, Even in strategy, they don't ask why. They don't ask why can I not double my sales, for example. What is stopping me from doubling my sales? So what are the problems? What is stopping me? What is my weakness? They never ask this, and this is part of the spirit of Kaizen Lean,
Yeah, and in production, whether it's manufacturing or service operations, in the production activity, you always have the same problem that prevent doubling sales. And part of it is you might have products that are old and no longer of interest to customers, so this is a separate problem. But in a productive activity, you always have cost, delivery, quality, safety, lead time, whatever. Same thing everywhere. It's in a hospital, same thing everywhere in the productive activity.
Yeah. And Bob, in this podcast, in the Leaders in CI community, we have many CI managers, or Kaizen managers, Lean managers. And what should be the role of this function, the CI manager, CI leader in the company?
Get people involved in Kaizen. Stop doing the value stream map, all the lean tool stuff. See, one of the problems is, value stream maps, A3 report, Gemba walks, these all came out of Kaizen. They were all inspired by Kaizen. So what happened in Lean world is they took these things out of Kaizen and used them out of the context of Kaizen. These things should be put back in Kaizen and used within the context of Kaizen, Kata, the Gemba walk, whatever it is. So fundamentally, you practice Kaizen, and through that practice, different methods and tools are used. And you may use Kata or something else or whatever, but or may not. But fundamentally, you need to do Kaizen. This is the reading, writing, arithmetic. This is first, second, third grade. If you don't do, and they just instead did these other tools, which is kind of like, you're doing geometry and trigonometry before you've done arithmetic.
Yes.
It's not quite an appropriate characterization, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And that's totally wrong. You have to master the basics. We have how many people in Lean world can do a standard work combination sheet?
Yeah,
how many can do a PQ and product quantity analysis? How many can do a time study?
Yeah.
I bet you it's 2%.
Yeah.
Some low number like that, 3%. They're not doing that. They're doing these other things. So it's just wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to get people to admit that, and I did a post the other day that said bye Lean tools, because AI is just going to incorporate Lean tools, and what you need to do is get away from Lean tools and focus on know-how and so forth. And that got like a total of 60 views. I mean, I guess I insulted everybody because their identity is attached to Lean tools. And I guess that this is a huge insult, that blog post that says bye Lean tools, because AI will just take that over. You won't be using that anymore. But it apparently just dug right into their identity, and people were like totally turned off by that blog post. So I'll have another one for people tomorrow to be totally turned off about learning is not good enough. That you have to go into know-how. And that's what Lean people do. Lean is all about learning. No, it's not. Well, maybe Lean is all about learning, but Kaizen, TPS, the Toyota way, this is about know-how.
Engaging people is the role of the CI manager, but don't be afraid to engage the CEO, because if they don't have the support of the CEO, nothing will happen. It is just window dressing, I guess, and theoretical Kaizen, theoretical Lean, or even Six Sigma reporting, or projects, like you said.
Well, engaging the CEO is difficult for a mid-level CI manager. There's no one best way of doing that, and people have been trying to do that for 30 or 50 years really, since 1973. And they tried to do that in the days of scientific management with Frederick Taylor. The reality that they face is most CEOs are not interested in engaging in Gemba Kaizen because it alters, or Kaizen generally, because it alters the status quo. And then them in particular, putting on their jeans and their steel-toed shoes and so forth, they see it as I'm up here in status with all my rights and privileges, and that cuts me down to the level of a worker. And so they don't see that activity, and they don't see Kaizen as an improvement in management practice. So we have a lot of work to do to change the general opinion, the opinion that most top leaders, not all, have about their vision of themselves, their role, what success looks like, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to think that our role as consultants, Japanese or non-Japanese, is also to help CI leaders, to engage CEOs and to attract the attention of CEOs by doing demo workshops, demo Gemba Kaizens, just teaching by doing. And that is a very important skill for a Kaizen consultant, because also Kaizen consultant should be different from a regular consultant.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And I'd like to also emphasize, you said it a few times, there are lots of highly capable non-Japanese consultants that guide Kaizen activities. Absolutely, yeah.
And also, I'd like to ask one other thing: is there is a typical trade-off in management. That is, should I get business results and versus respect for people?
Yeah.
So how do you see the trade-off?
Yeah, there's no trade-off, and that's one of the things that Kaizen teaches us, is to make improvements across a wide range of things, including respect for people, not just the technical cost, delivery, quality stuff, safety, ergonomic, etc. And that's what's amazing about Kaizen. By the way, when you take the tools out of Kaizen and use them out of that context, as I described before, this is the atomistic thinking that pervades the thinking of leaders. It's a trade-off mentality. Frank George Woolard, who created a flow production system at Morris Motors in the United Kingdom in the 1920s, his principles were continuous improvement and benefit for all. And he said that, and I'm quoting here, this principle of benefit for all is not based on altruistic ideals, much as that is to be admired, but upon the hard facts of business efficiency. And he was referring to his principle that the system of production must benefit everyone, consumers, workers, and owners. So Kaizen teaches that the trade-off mentality is the wrong way to think.
Yeah.
And that's and reorienting people away from this atomistic, you solve problems. Problems are interconnected. Kaizen teaches you that. But typically in classical management, batch and queue thinking, problems are isolated from one another. And you'll never double your sales and do that kind of stuff. I mean, the only way you can do it is basically to acquire other businesses. You can't do it organically by correcting interrelated problems, and also connecting processes to get a flow. Could talk more about that, or we didn't talk so much about it, but you want to achieve the flow of work so that you shorten the order to cash cycle and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you. Is the benefit for all, continuous improvement, benefit for all is what is missing in many companies.
Yep.
If you do Kaizen, if you do Lean, you want to grow the company in a certain way, to grow in efficiency, to grow in size, and everybody should benefit from that.
Yes.
So that should be something really in the basics of Kaizen and Lean.
Yep.
So Kaizen and Lean.
But a lot of many times the explanation is just not good. I was talking to somebody from a famous company the other day, and they're engaged with Kaizen, but the person I was talking to represents a service part of the business, but all the examples of Kaizen were manufacturing. So it's part of what I said earlier. The explanations of why this is important, why we should do it, are terrible in most cases.
Yeah. So good, Bob. Many interesting insights. So let's finish with what we call the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
The first one is, what do you do to keep body and mind fit and sharp?
I work out every day, different exercises. I read and I write daily. I'm always thinking, thinking all the time. I love to cook. What else do I do to keep sharp? Yesterday, my wife and we removed snow 2 times. It was very wet and heavy snow, so we went out 2 times to remove it. That constituted yesterday's exercise. What else do I do? I also like to talk to other people. Many people, it seems, are afraid to talk to me, but those that do, we meet on Zoom. We have some, wonderful conversations. We learn, they learn from me, but I like to learn from them, what their difficulties are and their challenges, and just other perspectives and the kinds of difficulties that they're dealing with at work and so on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's very good. I'm laughing because we have an internal training for our consultants that's called Personal Kaizen Energy, or Kaizen Energy, how to improve, how to change your life for the better. It's for professional, for consultants. We have a small community, and I will invite you because we have some interesting things,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
that could answer this question.
Yeah.
Of course, if you really believe in Kaizen, it's a philosophy. You have to apply it to yourself. You have to keep your body and mind, in a good condition, and sharp.
Well, I wrote a paper called in 1998 called Continuous Personal Improvement.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe you
because I recognized the connections between what I was learning from the Japanese consultants to not only how one leads, but also how one can improve themselves personally. But it was primarily in a work context. I'm not a big believer in bringing Kaizen into the home. Of course, you should have basic organization, like not have your kitchen plates outside in the in the shed or in the garage. They should be in the kitchen. But some people go crazy and they have a lot of visual controls of on the washing machine and things like this, and it's
they should. I see Kaizen on a personal level more as an inner development.
Yes.
So you have to clean your head, you have to clean your body.
Yes.
Not really your house, because otherwise you will be doing this.
You're at home. You should just relax. If it's a mess, it's okay at home.
So if you can share that article, if you think it's interesting, I think it would be.
Yeah, I'll share it. Anybody can get it. All my articles in a couple of days. There'll be a blog post on my titled research papers, and I just put them all into one PDF file. So 450 pages of all the research papers.
Good.
That I've written.
What about? Do you have a favorite business book?
I'm still very much enamored with the work of Thorsten Veblen, who was a socialist. No, he was a sociologist and economist, and his PhD was in philosophy, but that kind of rigor in thinking made him a particularly insightful sociologist and economist. And his work helped me crack the code of why most leaders resist, reject, ignore progressive management, and why they have done so throughout history, not just with lean and TPS, but with scientific management and whatever is between then and whatever was before then, and probably whatever comes after. Also, Taiichi Ohno's TPS book. Code of Production System.
Can you spell the name? Thorsten? What was the?
Thorsten, Thorsten. Veblen, Veblen. His books are very difficult to read.
Yes.
I'll warn you. And if English is your second language, you probably will stop very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I'm reading his book, I have to have my phone nearby to look up words because he uses a Rogue. You may have heard of Rogue's thesaurus. Well, he uses the 1870 version of Rogue's thesaurus,
Mhm.
1880s version. So, but I've always found his reading very rich, and I've been able to connect it to business problems very
Good.
directly.
What about your favorite podcast at the moment?
None. A podcast. I don't listen to podcasts. Sorry.
Okay, no. Well, nowadays I also prefer small clips of podcasts.
Yeah.
Just about small insights, small batch. Not
Yeah. I will read transcripts of podcasts.
yes.
I prefer to read because I have my pen. When I'm listening, and I can mark it up. When I'm listening, I have no pen in my head.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good reason. I agree with you. I have the same problem. I like to take notes, also.
Yeah. No, that's another. We could have a podcast on note taking someday.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And what should be our next podcast guest and why?
You may have already done this, but I think you should focus on the younger generation. I think people like Bruno Vasquez, Matt Elson, Catherine Belcher, Andrew Jala, to name a few, are the new people carrying this way of thinking forward and trying to get people interested in continuous improvement, TPS. They're trying to rehumanize business. And I realize business is different in different countries all over the world. It's more human in some places than others. But the American style of business tends to need to be rehumanized. And they are the younger generation. Bruno is in Brazil, Matt is in Canada, Catherine and Andrew are in the United States. We see, I follow their posts on LinkedIn. I think they're making very important contributions, and they could be, a larger forum such as yours would be very beneficial. These are people who are challenging people's thinking, of course, which is why I like them. Because that's what I do. But they're the next generation of that, and I think it's always very important to challenge people's thinking. The lean community does not like that. They're very much against having their thinking challenged. And I think this is very different than the Kaizen community, by the way.
Yeah.
The lean community is a different world. They're influenced by different people, Kaizen, and they don't like their thinking challenged. I told you about that blog post earlier, bye lean tools. I insulted them very badly, apparently.
Be aware they will call you insultant in some way.
Yeah, I guess so. And then the Kaizen community is okay, challenge my thinking.
Right.
Even if I have a Kaizen mindset, challenge this. So.
Yeah, in Kaizen, we give more importance to the foundations, the daily management, the problem solving, and Oshin can be the big changes.
Yeah.
Then the tools, you can use any tool you like with some, of course, we have some paradigms in terms of organizing production, organizing warehouses, organizing service companies.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's Oshin, problem solving, and daily management, engaging people. That's the three.
And gaining proficiency with these tools. Anybody can use a screwdriver or a hammer, but and there's a way to use these things well if it's part of your occupation. A professional carpenter uses a hammer different than I use. I don't mean to equate Kaizen or anything like that as a hammer, but it's just an analogy.
And to finish, Bob, we are in the Leaders in CI community. Most of the members of the community are CI leaders, CI managers, but not only. The name is Leaders in CI, not CI leaders, And What advice would you give them? You can address them directly, to finish.
Yeah, learn to think by yourself. Think for yourself. This is fundamental. It's easy and alluring to look to other people for answers to your problems. I think you should be very careful who you allow to influence you. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of archaic way of thinking. There's a lot of mix up between classical management and lean management, and I mean lean specifically in terms of this other world that will mislead you. You have to further develop your abilities to think critically. You have to elevate that capability to think critically. Everybody thinks, as I told you before, bachelor's, master's, PhD in engineering, and every teacher along the way will tell you they teach critical thinking. But I recognized that I was way lousy at it once I had my first Kaizen experiences. So if you're doing these lean tools but no Kaizen, your critical thinking might be a little better, but still has a long way to go, and you need to still develop it further. Always be skeptical. Ask, is that true? How do I know it's true? Just because somebody high in the status told me it's true, I need to find out for myself. I need to try it out for myself. And only you can do it. And you must you must evolve as circumstances change.
Thank you, Bob. It was a pleasure having you here. Very interesting conversation. And I hope I can continue to read your blogs and posts and books for the future.
Well, thank you. This has been a pleasure, and I thank you for having me on as your guest. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.